Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we're the FAIRtax Guys. I'm Randy Fischer.
FAIRtax Guys plus one today. We have an honorary FAIRtax Guy. Happy New Year, everybody. First FAIRtax Power Radio show of the new year.
Yep.
You all right? We ready to go get it?
We are.
It is now officially an election year. The Congress critters will be paying attention, or more attention than usual, to we the people. So,
if they can get by the impeachment idiocy.
Yeah, that's going to suck a lot of the oxygen out of the air. But
mercy.
Like Bob says, we need to get the people involved, and that is the purpose of FAIRtax Power Radio, to get more people involved. And and next week's show, we're going to talk even more about that.
Indeed.
But for this week's show, we're lucky enough to have Randy here. I'm going to add here that in the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association, I'm not trying to make this a Florida-centric show, but we are very lucky because we have a number of wonderful board members, several of whom are also on the national board, so we have a big advantage here. And Randy is on the board of directors for the national group, the Americans for Fair Taxation, and he's also a board member here in Florida. And he spends all his retired days tending his 12-acre farm and doing fair tax, and that's about it.
It's a full day.
Well, we said wearer of many hats, and you couldn't decide if you wanted the red one or the white one or the blue one, or well, you finally settled on the blue one, I see. But
the first 3 hours are in the dark before dawn, and then
that's true.
The day goes on from there.
All right. Well, we want to dig right into the meat and potatoes of our subject matter on our first FAIRtax Power Radio show. And as we mentioned, Randy is one of the most heavily involved and one of the most knowledgeable fair tax people on the face of the earth, that we're very privileged to have him here. So I want to ask you, normally at the beginning of every year, the president stands up before Congress and gives a State of the Union message. What is the state of the fair tax?
Well, the fair tax is refocusing to the grassroots.
Okay.
And our goal now is to strengthen state organizations, grow locally, because Congress is broken. Congress right now is dysfunctional.
I'd have never thought of that.
And they are so broken that people are turning them off, turning away from them, and it's going to be much more important for fair tax to get stronger and stronger at the grassroots. So that's what 2018 was about. It was what 2019 was about. And to get there, we shifted away from kind of a decentralized, hands-on organizational structure to getting our own grassroots coordinator and developer, Mr. Jim Bennett, strongly in charge, and having him do the thing that needs to be done with coordinating the growth of the state groups.
So you think we're going to see more of what's going on in Alabama and Georgia here is coming up?
It's critical that a state organization gets so strong that, one, the media cannot ignore them, two, the legislature fears them, and three, that the people demand to have tax reform on the state level that looks like the fair tax. And right now, the Alabama Economic Freedom Act, the bill that they have in the House that is a true fair tax, actually the House and the Senate now, I think, the bill that they have that is a true fair tax, it's imperative that they keep up that effort, that they grow that effort. And one of the biggest things that's happened, and this is something that I'm strongly encouraging, they formed a coalition. And the coalition they formed is, you could call it a Tea Party group if you want to go back to 2007, 2008. It's a group of folks that are, they're fed up, they're not going to take it anymore. They want to get control of the government again. And it's the people that are supporting Article 5 in the Convention of States.
That's exactly what the Convention of States sounds like.
Now, I know there's people out there cringing, and I know there's people out there who say, oh, no, it's a con, and that, stay away from it, don't touch it. George Soros is supporting it. nobody's really neutral on it. They're either very strong one direction or they're very strong the other direction.
Yeah.
But for Alabama's purpose, which is to get this Economic Freedom Act passed, they had the opportunity to form a coalition. 28,000 members, active members and supporters of Article 5 in Alabama.
Wow.
In the Convention of States movement. They hold regular local meetings, district meetings. They hold conferences, from my understanding. They're on an educational effort, which somewhat like what we do here at the FAIRtax. And now they're doing town halls to go with the new bill. The primary sponsor, Chuck Bailey, who's the FAIRtax State Director, and the State Director for their Convention of State Groups, are meeting in small group sessions with the people. And they're going literally restaurant to restaurant, small meeting hall to small meeting hall.
Yeah, Bob and I are hopefully get involved in one of those meetings. We're very willing to go to Alabama if we can fit it into our own travel schedule.
And actually, that's spinning off into some other coalitions which are really important. That is coalitions with small business groups, like you do with the Chamber. Yeah. Coalitions with other groups that have more tax problems than they need to have, like small businesses, can help strengthen our effort. So I'm encouraging people, go out and find a small group, join it, participate in it, and bring the FAIRtax to that small group. Make them FAIRtax supporters.
So to our friends in Alabama, this is the time to get involved. All right, we're in 2020. The legislature, I believe, meets early next month. Correct?
They start the process. Yes,
Yep.
The committee meetings, and then the markup. And
this is the time to get involved and call your local legislators. Whatever you can do in Alabama, help Chuck Bailey, because I've talked to, emailed back and forth with Chuck. He is a tireless worker. He can't do it all by himself. He needs help. So this is the time to get involved.
Have the Alabama people run into much organized opposition, to your knowledge?
There's one radio talk show host who wants to make himself a thorn and a pain. I think he thinks of himself as the anti-Neil Bortz or something. He thinks that he can make his name and draw some more listeners. There were some very valid concerns by some of the local city politicians and city managers. Those are being worked out and overcome, and frankly, it's getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Behind them is Georgia. Georgia has a bill. They're waiting on finishing up a study to get that bill through committee in Georgia. Nebraska's working on a tax reform effort that's going to change their tax base and lower and eventually eliminate their income tax. Minnesota's doing a study. Indiana's doing a study. I mean, there's a lot going on at the states, in the states.
I figured we'd only need one or two states to get this fully implemented, to sit a first-hand look at just how well. People wonder, is this going to work? Well, he got $20 million worth of research behind it, saying it will. And these state ones are modeled quite heavily after the FAIRtax, with the prebate and the whole thing, and it's included in the price of everything. And I think when people see how well it works, when the state withholding goes away, when you get a tax refund every month,
right,
they're going to get addicted to that really quick. And when folks see how well Alabama and Georgia come off with this thing, it's going to take off the national level.
Well, and it's going to scare the states that are still clinging to income taxes. The Carolinas in particular. The states like Mississippi, they're going to see businesses wanting to have the same type of setup that's going on in Alabama, and that new businesses and more businesses start opening in Alabama than in Mississippi.
When money starts walking from North Carolina to Alabama, which is not that far,
right,
and geographically anyway,
well, if Georgia has no income tax and Florida has no income tax and Alabama has no income tax, You're
Texas has already passed a constitutional amendment saying there will never be a state income tax in Texas.
And if you see a solid South with no income tax, then it's going to be awful hard for the North, particularly the Midwest, the Rust Belt, to sit there and say, okay, well, we're going to keep imposing higher and higher income taxes on our people. So that and getting our membership numbers organized, getting out from under the database system that we had been using called Your Membership, that just wasn't getting the job done. We have a tireless volunteer in New York, Adam Yomtov.
Yes, and Bob and I have mentioned him several times.
We have mentioned that name several times here.
Yeah.
He has shouldered the load when it comes to getting our databases cleaned up, getting our mail system better operating and organized.
Yeah.
And with his help, we now know how many members we have. We know how many members by state. We know how many who's donating and how much they've donated. And we're able to do much more effective fundraising. But frankly, we're still not at the level that we would need to be at to buy advertising, to put ads in periodicals. We just can't seem to break through because there's so many other people out there right now that are fundraising. And 2020 is going to be an even tougher year for fundraising because of the elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of an ancillary question here as to how this is going. We're lucky to be here in Florida where there is a strong FAIRtax organization. How do people who are in states that are not as well organized get started? Who can they turn to for help?
They can contact me at randy.fisher@fairtax.org.
Yeah, Ron will put your little email address right down there on the screen so folks can read it.
Yep.
Or they can send an email to info@fairtax.org, or they can contact Jim Bennett, who's been on the show previously.
But there are resources for states who are not as well organized as Alabama and Florida and places like that where you can get help. And then when we get this going at the state level across the country, we're going to see us take off.
Right. And, we've got 27 qualified groups, and I don't want to go into what makes a group qualified or not qualified. That's a corporate thing. We've got 34 states with active groups. And we're working to build groups in every state in the union.
All right, well, let me kind of slide up here into this next question. I was really intrigued last time I talked to Steve Hayes, saying that he really expected to get a personal meeting with President Trump. What's going on with that?
I don't know of any progress that's being made on that. The strongest connection we have is former business partner of Rudy Giuliani's is on our board of directors. His name's John Grafer. He's moved his business from New York to Texas, and he's in contact with the former mayor, and the former mayor tells him that he can get him he and Steve Hayes a meeting with President Trump. But
probably not going to happen until after the election, for sure.
It's not going to happen.
So I think all the presidential candidates are going to be consumed with, on the Democrat side, winning the primary, and secondly, running against President Trump. And they're going to say, President Trump is going to say, we did tax reform in 2017. He's not going to bring up something like this just yet, okay? But Steve Hayes in his FAIRtax Friday has made the point that both Democrats and Republicans can do better with whatever they're promising the American people. It's a lot easier under the FAIRtax than under the current system, which is so complicated. You're promising something to everybody. But, if you go back and check the FAIRtax Friday, he made the case that it's a lot easier to predict what's going to happen or to figure out how much we're going to have to increase taxes for these freebies and so forth under the FAIRtax. But until after the November election, I don't think. But maybe one of the people in the Trump circle.
Yes, or even one of the Trump family members.
Yeah.
I mean, Donald Jr. I think had a book tour, and I know some people went and talked to him about the FAIRtax during the book tour. He said, "My dad's aware of it. He likes it." And that's kind of the standard reply that I'm sure that he's been told to give. But and even in Indiana, if you have a contact with the vice president when he was governor, or contact with the vice president when he was a congressman, try to renew contact with the vice president, because the path to the president is through the vice president, is through his inner circle.
Because Pence was a co-sponsor when he was in Congress.
12 years.
We've got videos of him talking very warmly about the fair tax.
And he used to lecture on the fair tax to his fellow Republicans as part of the Republican study group.
And like I said, next episode, Bob and I are going to concentrate on what you do with your local politicians, all right? But right now we're talking about the national effort. And yeah, there is some difference. We can have more of an effect on our local politicians than we can have on somebody running for president. That's just a fact.
All right, well, let me shift gears a little bit here and put something that's really right in your wheelhouse, because one of the many hats that Randy wears is a social media director for the FAIRtax. And that, you talk about a fluid environment. That is changing at a moment. How can we as FAIRtax people make better use of social media than we're doing now?
Well, we can expand it out to other platforms. There are so many platforms now. There's just no way one person can try and handle more than 2 platforms and do it effectively. So that's one reason why most of our efforts are focused on Facebook and Twitter. Those are still the big gorillas.
I know Facebook. I don't know much about Twitter.
Well,
except I read the tweets that folks make. But.
Well, Instagram, Pinterest. There's so many other platforms that people that aren't political try to use, to where we could be talking to those people and keeping it apolitical or non-political, keeping it focused on their economic future, their paycheck, their cost of goods at the grocery store, the fact that they would get a monthly tax refund and not an annual tax refund that they would have to wait 15 months for and beg for. So, we need are volunteers. We need people who like social media, understand it, and are willing to put in an hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, just creating some content.
Not per day.
No, a week. Just creating some content. We need some video content, because video is still the most engaging thing out there. It gets the better reach and the better engagement, unless you find one of these, posts.
Oh yeah, I love those little taxes over lunch series. Those are the most effective ads I've seen for anything in a long time. Yeah,
and I get more requests about those. How can I see them? How can I, get a copy? And we can arrange to, make sure you've got the link to put them on social media. They're on our YouTube page.
So if you had a volunteer who concentrated on, say, Gab, right, that would be helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Or Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many platforms out there. Some of them are very political. Some of them are very one-sided political. And, some of them, are totally non-political. But the one thing about the FAIRtax is it doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be left or right.
Everybody should like more money in their paycheck with no withholding. Everybody should like not having to fill out a tax return. Everybody should like not having to keep detailed records, and not everybody should like having to deal with an IRS that is its own judge, jury, and executioner.
Absolutely.
So that works pretty well. So how does somebody who, say, if someone watching the program now is an expert in Gap or Pinterest or one of the other things I know nothing about, how do they get a hold of somebody and volunteer their services?
Well, again, you can contact me, and you can send us a message if you're on Facebook. Go to the facebook.com/FAIRtax. That'll get you to our National FAIRtax page. And use the message feature and send a message to the page, and we'll connect up with you, and we'll discuss, what it is that you want to do and like to do and have skills to do. We are a little concerned about keeping the trademark protected, the items that we're obligated to protect, the brands, the logos. We do ask that you acknowledge and electronically sign off on that you'll follow the requirements for use of the brand and the trademark. And beyond that, we'll do everything we can do to help you.
Yeah, I was amazed to hear there's a group going out to college campuses in California.
Yes.
Pushing this.
Yeah, and they're using California college free speech zones. I never thought I would have
the
to.
entire country was a free speech zone. That's what the First Amendment's all about.
It is, but apparently on college campuses, you don't want to trigger people. So they know that in a free speech zone, they might hear free speech. Who'd have thought it?
Mercy. So, all right, I want to change gears one more time. There's a guy that we know named Alan Waters.
Yes.
He is running for Senate in Rhode Island now. He started out in Massachusetts but switched to Rhode Island.
Yes.
He has signed the Fair Tax Candidates Pledge promising to co-sponsor the legislation and vote for it should it ever come up for a vote.
Yes.
But it was interesting. I was looking at his website. He describes himself as, and these are his words now, a moderate Republican, classical liberal. Now, that is not the typical, demographic that the fair tax supporters seem to fall into. Are we reaching people outside of the hardcore conservative folks that have been supporting the fair tax all along?
Some. Not as much as we'd like. And what's really interesting, and I don't want to make this show about politics any more than it is, but since we're talking about a candidate for Senate, Andrew Yang. He's got some economic proposals. He wants to at least get rid of a great portion of the income tax system, replacing it with a VAT tax, which we all know is not the fair tax. And he wants to make sure that because of automation eliminating jobs, that everybody has the option for $1,000 a month universal basic income or gets that. Now, that's not the prebate. It's not the fair tax. But his supporters are at least open to learning about the fair tax. So I find that to be kind of an interesting
Rhode Island is a rather deep blue state.
Yes.
And the fact that there's somebody running on the fair tax in a state like that has to be encouraging.
Yes, it is. And the whole idea, though, of using our candidate pledge to identify and commit candidates is something that we really need to push.
Okay.
And we now have a link on the website for the candidate pledge.
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to a town hall. I want to take a physical copy of the pledge to sign. Where can I download and print one?
You go to the section on the website
You're talking about fairtax.org now.
Yes, fairtax.org. And it's the second tab from the left, and I just drew a blank. The Get Involved tab.
Oh, okay.
Tap Get Involved. Under Get Involved, there's a sub-tab that says Fair Tax Candidate Pledge. Take it from there.
There you go.
Yes, senior moments.
Very simple.
Now we'll just.
Yeah. Okay.
My computer's being rather slow. I'm just now getting there. Okay.
Yes.
There you go. It's under,
Get Involved.
It's under Get. Okay, that's the second one over.
Yes, and then drop down 3. Fair Tax Candidate Pledge.
Okay.
Yep.
Take it from there.
And that'll pop up.
It says click here to download.
Click here to download.
Yep.
All right.
Print it. Take one to every
There's
candidate
another link
meeting.
there where you can get a PDF to print it.
That's it. That's the one you want to use.
So take
Hey, you guys are on the ball. It even says FairTax 2020 candidate
It
pledge.
does indeed. Yes.
I'm impressed.
take the candidate pledge and a scrolling banner to
there you go.
to your town halls.
Yeah.
And let those folks know that you expect them to support the fair tax.
And because there's going to be a lot of small group opportunities for the Democrat campaign for president, there's a lot of people in a lot of places like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina that could easily get into a 15 people in the room situation with the candidate. And that would be the time to talk about the pledge, talk about the fair tax, and ask the candidate to at least consider it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the best.
To specifically address that issue, watch next week's show too, because that's what Bob and I are going to do. We're going to concentrate on how to address a candidate for office, especially a federal candidate, but it doesn't have to be a federal candidate, about the fair tax. So that's just a little plug for next week's show.
Okay.
All right.
And I think our producer was saying something about time.
Yeah, our producer is always flashing his time signals, and Ron wants to talk about the FAIRtax logo store here for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But Randy, I do appreciate your giving us a little bit of your busy schedule.
Yeah.
And we will have you back when your schedule permits.
Thank you.
All right, logo store, go.
Okay, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. One of the nice things they have are these tumblers. Okay, you can get a set of those, and then when you have your friends over for dinner, make sure you serve drinks in that. You know, and while you're wearing your FAIRtax shirt and your FAIRtax hat, and you have the FAIRtax business cards, we call them the prebate cards, in the pocket of your FAIRtax shirt, all right, which has basic information about the FAIRtax on one side and the prebate schedule. We're going to be coming out with a new prebate schedule pretty soon because it is 2020. So there's a lot of other things. We have these very nice tote bags. This one is, I think they call it a daily conference bag or something like that. But they have the simpler ones too that are just shopping bags. We have the palm cards, which have a little bit more information than the small business size cards. All right, good information on both sides. You can buy a pack of them. In fact, I think that's the only way you can buy them is in a package. Okay, the umbrellas. The umbrellas are back. We didn't have them for a while.
Rudy just sent me one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, Rudy.
Yes.
And the scrolling banner, which Bob and I use during every episode. All right, these are a must. And as we said in previous episodes, you're required to take this to the town hall, okay? Yeah, just tell them the FAIRtax Guys said you had to bring it to the town hall. I don't think that'll make a bit of difference, but hey, it's worth it, all right? And the yard signs, we have new yard signs, which are much better looking, and they're more of a traditional size than last year. So, and that's just a small sampling of what's in the store. Go to FAIRtaxLogoStore.org and peruse through the different pages, all right? I believe we pay the shipping on this. This is not a money maker for us. This is a way of advertising. So you're going to find something there that's going to pique your interest, whether it's a travel mug. I don't think they have ceramic mugs because they have trouble shipping them and keeping the handles on. And that's just one unfortunate reality of life. But they have travel mugs and they have plastic mugs and so forth.
I still want to see you wearing the earrings.
Yes, my wife just mentioned the earrings. Yep. All right. And so, yeah, they're kind of large, but you know, when we go to an event where we're serving at a FAIRtax table, my wife will have the earrings on. I won't. Okay. So anyways, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. Please go there, get something, demonstrate your support for the fair tax.
May I make one more quick pitch?
Sure.
I mentioned Adam Yomtov. The way our donation system is set up, if you donated in the past, and we dearly love you for donating in the past, you need to reach out to Adam if you want to update your credit card, if you want to update or change your donation, and we're going to make sure that you've got an easy way to do that. Hopefully you can have Adam's contact number added to the video. What we're finding is people's credit cards expire or they cancel that card and get a different card. And because we had 3 legacy systems that were carrying donations, it's been a real mess. So what I'd ask is that you reach out by phone to Adam, and he's easy to contact, and he'll get it worked right out for you.
Yeah, and you know, I'd also like to make the point, as a national organization, you know, first off, all the organizations for the fair tax are volunteers, staffed by volunteers, all of them. There are no paid positions, all right? But the national organization does have some costs involved. To maintain a national organization, it's what, about 10 grand a month?
Yeah, between websites, mail, email, registration, 50 states worth of registration, insurance costs. I mean, there is about 9,000 to 10,000 a month.
Yeah. So they could use your financial support too. So,
Thank you.
anyways, I think that's about it. That's all I've got.
That's going to wrap up this edition of FairTax Power Radio. Randy, again, thanks for being with us.
Thank
we
you,
will
Bob.
see you again
Thank you, Rob.
sometime in the future. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Walero.
The FairTax Guys again reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
You'll demand it. Thank you.
So tell me how it works.
You know, it's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, now see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax. We tax what you consume as you consume it, and that's it.